Welcome to this explainer on the pathways to entrepreneurial ventures. For a lot of folks, business ownership kind of feels like this exclusive, closed-off club. It can seem mysterious, risky, and honestly, incredibly overwhelming. But the truth is, entrepreneurship isn't just about, say, inventing the next flying car in your garage. There are structured, highly distinct paths you can take to become a business owner. And by the end of this explainer, we're going to completely demystify those paths for you. So, let's just dive right in.
But before we map out the whole territory, I want you to ask yourself, have you ever actually considered investing in a franchise? Seriously, do you know anyone who has bought into an established brand? Take just a second to ponder your own impressions of franchising. Is it this guaranteed golden ticket to success, or is it more of a restrictive corporate trap? Hold on to those thoughts, because we're going to break down exactly what that path looks like, right alongside a few other options you might not have even considered. So, here is your Choose Your Own Adventure roadmap for today. We're going to cover creating a new venture from scratch, acquiring an existing business, exploring the franchising hybrid model, and finally, navigating the ecosystems, incubators, and accelerators that can support you. All right, let's jump straight into pathway number 1, creating a new venture. This is your classic blank page approach to entrepreneurship. When you're starting a completely new venture, you're generally looking at two main approaches. First up is the new approach. This one requires you to be hyper-aware of daily life. You basically notice annoying everyday experiences or problems, and you develop an entirely new product or service to solve them. You're inventing something completely novel. Then, on the flip side, there's the new old approach. This involves essentially piggybacking on someone else's idea. You take an existing product or service and you improve it. Maybe you introduce it to an area where it just isn't currently available, or you tweak it so it offers something unique that's really difficult for competitors to copy. You don't always have to invent a new beverage, you just have to figure out a better way to bottle it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you literally just have to make the wheel spin better. To really map out your big idea, we use the entrepreneurial newness framework. It's all about balancing market newness against technological newness. So think about it this way. If you're developing a radical new technology to enter an already existing market category, that's a company like Tesla Motors. Now, if you use radical new technology to create a completely new market category altogether, that's SpaceX. And then we have situations with incremental technological innovation, but radical market innovation. Think of Zipcar for a second. They used existing car technology, but created a brand new market category for hourly on-demand car sharing. It's just a fantastic framework to figure out exactly where your new venture fits into the broader landscape. But let's be real, creating a new venture requires some hard math. You're constantly weighing that potential upside gain against the downside loss. How much money will you make if things go perfectly, and how much will you lose if they completely tank? Your checklist for estimating startup expenses absolutely has to include fixtures, legal fees, licenses, starting inventory, advertising, and accounts receivable. Because let's face it, nobody wants to sell their living room couch to fund their starting inventory. You have to plan for unexpected cash needs, which is exactly why experts usually recommend calculating your baseline expenses and then multiplying them to ensure you have a solid cash cushion to survive those early lean months. Okay, moving on to our second pathway. Acquiring an existing business. If you're the kind of person who wants a running start rather than building from absolute zero, this is definitely your route. So why buy instead of build? Well, there are actually massive advantages here. You get to step into a scenario with existing customers, an established system to control costs, and hopefully some active profit. It drastically reduces your startup time and effort. The inventory is already there, the equipment is plugged in and working, the personnel actually know what they're doing, and those vital relationships with suppliers, bankers, and accountants are already cemented. Basically, you're buying momentum. You definitely can't just buy a business blindly though, right? You've got to put on your detective hat. Before you even think about making an offer, you have to ask some critical questions. First, why is the business being sold in the first place? Is the owner simply retiring to Florida, or is a massive new competitor about to move in right across the street? Second, what is the actual physical condition of the business and the inventory? Is that expensive equipment about to break down? Third, how many of the key employees will actually stick around once the business changes hands? And fourth, what is the true bottom line profitability? And that brings us to the magic words, due diligence. The crucial point is this. As a buyer, you should be incredibly wary of any verbal promises made without written corroboration. You absolutely cannot just take the seller's word for it. You have to spend time with the seller's books and reconstruct the financial statements yourself to determine how much cash is actually available. But keep in mind, due diligence isn't just about the math, it's heavily about the people. You should be interviewing not just the owner, but the vendors, the competitors, the customers, and the employees to get the unvarnished truth about what you're actually buying into.
Which leads us right into our third pathway, franchising. This is the hybrid business-in-a-box approach. Let's quickly get our terminology straight here. A franchise is the actual licensing arrangement itself. The franchisor is the corporate entity that's selling the brand and the operating systems. And the franchisee? Well, that's you, the person putting up the capital and running the local unit by their playbook. Just take a walk down any major street and you'll see them everywhere. Burger King, Dairy Queen, Dunkin' Donuts, H&R Block, McDonald's, 7-Eleven, and Subway. These are everyday examples that we all know. When you walk into a Subway, you generally aren't walking into a corporate-owned store. You're usually walking into a store owned by an independent franchisee who has licensed the right to use that highly recognizable brand. But listen, franchising isn't a perfect, foolproof system. It's a huge trade-off. Let's weigh the advantages versus the disadvantages. On the plus side, you get professional management training, instant brand name appeal, a proven track record, which means far less risk, and sometimes you even get financial assistance. The downside? It is expensive. The basic franchise fee can be astronomically high, sometimes up to $1 million just to get the doors open, and you must continually pay a royalty percentage on your gross sales. Furthermore, you face very strict franchisor control to achieve uniformity across the brand. You don't get the creative freedom to suddenly start selling tacos at your franchised burger joint, you have to play by their rules. Because of those massive financial risks, and really the power dynamics at play, franchise law is heavily regulated. The single most important thing you need to know about is the FDD, or Franchise Disclosure Document. This is a massive legal safeguard divided into 23 specific categories that requires franchisors to make full pre-sale disclosure to prospective franchisees. It details the costs, the legal history of the franchisor, your obligations, and the earnings claims. By law, a prospective franchisee must receive the FDD before signing any contract. It is an absolutely critical piece of the puzzle that you cannot skip over. And honestly, deciding to purchase a franchise is based on a highly complex process model. It's definitely not just a simple yes or no. It starts with the baseline self-employment decision, which is influenced by your own social norms, perceived behavioral control, and attitude. Then you move through an organizational type decision, basically asking, do you want to start from scratch or franchise, which is impacted by financial factors and your unique personality traits. Finally, all of that funnels down into the brand decision. You're weighing sector growth, relative cost, franchisor reputation, and brand power before you ever reach that final franchise purchase behavior. It's a deeply analytical, multi-layered journey. Now, whichever of those three paths you end up choosing, the good news is you don't have to do it alone. Let's look at our final section, the modern support ecosystems designed to help you succeed. Two of the most common support structures out there are incubators and accelerators, and it's actually really important to know the difference. Business incubators generally provide foundational services. Think along the lines of management training, shared office space, access to basic technology, and a collaborative environment just to get your ideas off the ground. Business accelerators, on the other hand, are much more aggressive. They offer intense support services and actual funding opportunities to rapidly scale your business. However, in an accelerator, entrepreneurs typically have to offer up equity, which is a percentage of ownership in their company, in exchange for that capital and hypergrowth mentorship. Both of those structures exist within what we call an entrepreneurial ecosystem. An ecosystem is basically the agglomeration of interconnected individuals, entities, and regulatory bodies in a specific area. It's the broader social and economic environment affecting local entrepreneurship. Whether it's local government policies, networking groups, angel investors, or universities, you're part of a much larger, living community that can either stifle or dramatically boost your new venture. The big takeaway here? Tap into your local ecosystem early. We have covered a lot of ground today. We explored the blank canvas of creating a new venture, the pragmatic head start of acquiring an existing business, and the highly structured hybrid model of franchising. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Which entrepreneurial pathway actually fits your goals? Are you a radical inventor building from scratch, a shrewd buyer looking for a running start, or a system-following franchisee? The path you choose is going to dictate your entire journey ahead. Keep learning, keep evaluating your options, and I will see you in the next explainer.